So I'm picking back up. I don't know why sometimes my video is going off. But Steve and I built this. I researched it and he built it. They're not difficult to build at all yourself. And I love the sound of water. We've got several water features in our gardens. So now I'm going to come around because I've already talked about everything in the front. So I'm going to come around and, oh, this is the snowball. I don't know that I talked about the snowball viburnum. This is the big one, and I dug it up from our first home and planted it here, and it will be covered with the snowball blooms. I love snowball viburnum, and I planted another one right here this past fall, so it'll start growing. This is a Belinda's Dream Rose that I do need to spray and get some more Miracle Grow or fish emulsion on it, but it always blooms, that Belinda's Dream. It's an antique shrub rose that I learned about actually in the garden group that Catherine and I were in years ago. It's a real garden group. I don't know if any of you gardeners have a side or a place in your yard where you put your sick plants, or maybe your plants that you're about to plant, the ones that you've bought up. This is that area. This is the side of our home, and this is the sidewalk that goes into our side courtyard. So I actually have that magnolia tree I just bought at Vesley's for a friend of mine in remembrance of a family member of hers. So I've got to deliver that to her this week. And let's see, so we come through the gate, and some things on this side, this is my side courtyard. Some things, I've got gardenias. This is the cast iron plant. I know a lot of people love cast iron plant. It's never been my favorite. My mother always loved it, so I'll always keep a patch of it, just to remember her by, because she loved cast iron plants so much. But it seems like a lot of times mine looks like those leaves right there. Sometimes Steve will cut it back like in March, and then it'll flush out with all green leaves, but we didn't cut it back this year. We've always got something in the garden that needs to be planted. Here's I think this is a limelight. I'm not even sure what that is. It's been sitting there for a while. I've got it, just wasn't sure where I wanted to put it. I've got a eucalyptus that I got at Adam's Nursery in Petal at one of Catherine's garden tours or garden things that she had at her house, and we still haven't put that in the ground, but I need to. I have here some of my red bell pepper plants planted in a pot. Then I bought this big old antique barrel, or what am I trying to say, tub, this old tub, and I planted it with some squash and different herbs like parsley and basil, and I've got some I've got one tomato plant planted there, even though we don't eat tomatoes, but I thought I would try my hand at making some homemade tomato sauce, because we are eating healthy, so I don't want the sugar in my tomato sauce, so I'm growing it for that. But I've got several red bell pepper plants planted in there. I also am trying to plant some green onions. I cut off the ends of the green onions that I used to cook with last week and put them in water, or a couple of weeks ago, put them in water, let them root. When they start growing green out the top, then you're supposed to be able to plant them. And so I'll let y'all know how those turn out, if it really works, to be able to grow vegetables from your produce that you buy in the grocery store. So I tried that with that, and I'm trying it with some celery too that I've got rooting right now. Also in this bed on the side is it's backdropped with a brick wall, and so these garden homes That's our neighbor's garage right there. So I love a brick background, so it's perfect for that. This is a rose that I've got growing amongst all of this white uh, Mexican petunia. I can't remember where I bought the white. I used to have the purple in my other garden in our previous home. But I have this white, and it's actually, I mean, it spreads everywhere. Like, this started off as one plant, and look how much it spread. So I always have some of that I can pass along to friends to dig up some of that. Also have banana trees that grow here. Here's another lily of the Nile that just finished blooming. It was the variegated, it was the blue and white one that I love so much. Here's some more old pots. And so this is my sunny courtyard. This is the sunny courtyard. I think y'all have seen pictures of it. Last year, this used to be a brick patio. And you can see the brick. I can't see what I'm filming because the sun is so bright right now. But there's a big brick patio courtyard in the back, and then there's the brick sidewalk with the drains, French drains in them. We're so grateful that that was here. The previous owners that we bought the home from had already put all this in, the hardscape in, which is a very expensive part of your garden and time consuming if you do it yourself. Steve and I did it ourselves in our first home. We put all the sidewalks in. We did it with pea gravel first and the big flat stones. And then when we could afford it, we took the pea gravel out, and we had a bricklayer come that did a brick path for us in our other home. But this was already done, and we knew what a blessing that was, because then all we had to do was come in here with our flowers and trees and shrubs that we like to grow. This is another big urn that I bought at an estate sale. And I use it as a planter. It's got a lemon. I'm not sure. Is this a lemon tree? No, this is a lime tree. You can see the lime. I'm trying to show you the lime right here. Yes, there's the lime. So it just finished blooming. The scent was absolutely divine. And now it's gonna, when the blooms fall off, that's where the fruit forms. So it'll be covered with lime soon. This is an old blush climbing rose that I also dug up from our previous home. And actually I've had it in a couple of different places in this garden. I had it in the front between the garages at one time, but it looked kind of messy. So we moved it to a couple of different places, but I think I like where it's landed in this side courtyard. It seems to get good sun, and it blooms off and on through the season. I have it planted going over, this is a old French, or this is like some doors they were French doors that I bought at a sale off of Facebook Marketplace, and we took the windows out of it, and we had mirrors put in it, and we just leaned it up in our garden for reflection. I just love mirrors in a garden also. That's another thing that I love seeing in a garden, are mirrors. Have bird baths that I've had forever in here. This is the Luna hibiscus. They're also called dinner plate hibiscus, and I've had these several years. They die back in the winter and they come back, and they put off these beautiful blooms each morning, and then the blooms will die like that, and you just take the bloom off. And but I do want to ask, some of you might know about this, are these seed pods that I can save the seeds? If anybody knows and can tell me how to save the seeds from this, I would love to save them, dry them, whatever you do. I'm assuming, or at what point do I take this off to save the seed? I don't know if y'all can see that. But do I just dry that out and save the seed and plant it or pass it along? I don't know. If anybody can tell me that, I'd love to know. Let's see, what else have we got? So I have, that's the Luna hibiscus, and then I've got plumbago, blue plumbago planted in this blue pot. I love putting pots in the garden beds also, not just on the patios. So blue plumbago, I've discovered, does really, really well in pots. I don't have good luck with it when I plant it in the ground for it coming back. But I do have good luck. I'm going to show you. I'm going to turn my camera around. Try not to go too fast. I'll show you my other blue plumbago in a minute and how gorgeous it is. But here's just another pot that I have some rosemary, parsley, and the green onions that I'm trying to grow from the produce part, and some more bell peppers. I can see more bell peppers in this is my little spot. This is really the only spot besides that big garden tub that I have vegetables. I used to have vegetables planted here, mostly bell peppers, broccoli, different herbs here because it gets full sun. But last year or a couple of years ago, I planted this mint, and I planted it in pots, but somehow it spread out into this garden, and I just haven't dug it up. I just kept it this year, and I tried doing the bell peppers, more of them in the pots, and I'm going to try that and see if that will work. Here's another, this is a climbing antique rose, and I can't remember the name of it right now. I think I have it written down in my garden journal. I'll have to look back and see if I can find the name of it. That's another one that I dug up from our other home and planted it here. And Steve he helps me. It takes both of us to do the espalier, I think is that how you say it, on the wall where you have to use ties and screws to tie up the climbing roses so it doesn't just fall all over your patio. One more thing let me go back to this patio. Okay, so I am a big collector of anything at Dirt Cheap or Treasure Hunt or estate sales or end of the season sales. Many of my plants come from end of the season sales. If they're perennials, I always go to the sales, and they may not look good at the end of the summer, but they always come back. This is another rose that I dug up from our previous home. This is a 4th of July rose, and it was in full bloom a few weeks ago. Absolutely gorgeous, and it'll bloom. You can see there are lots of buds on it, so it's going to have another bloom. Here's another, this is a lemon tree that was covered with blooms that smelled so good. The blooms dropped off, and you can see the little lemons that are about to form there. This is another urn that I bought at an estate sale, and this spring we actually turned it into another fountain urn so I could have a little water sound on this side courtyard. This chair, both of these chairs I love. They came from Dirt Cheap on sale. I visit that Dirt Cheap or Treasure Hunt when I can, and sometimes I'll find some really good finds. This is this couch I found at an estate sale for, I think I got it for $5, and and also the coffee table. I've got to put it. It was made for outside, but I need to put a finish on it, or some finish on it, because it is definitely bleached out, and I've got to tend to that soon so it doesn't rot. It's very, very old. Okay, now I can get to the blue plumbago. This is I just love this. I bought this huge blue pot on sale at Barrett's nursery end of the year sale a couple of years ago from Tracy in Columbia. And I saw a friend of mine who owns Goodness Gracious in Laurel. Several years ago, my cousin Erin and I went over there to shop, and she had 2 pots by her door of her shop, and she had plumbago planted in it, and it looked just like this. It was huge. My plumbago does not get this big in the ground. And so I planted this last spring. It's 2 plants. Well, actually it's 3. There's 2 blue and 1 white that you can see back here, the white. There's 3 plants in this big pot. And y'all, I didn't cover it or anything last winter, and it never died back, and it came back with all these blooms, and you just keep it watered. When it starts to wilt a little bit, you just water it. So since it did so well, I have this old pot in our back, and I put it right there, and that's 2 plumbago plants right there that I got at Art Cetera. They have some great plants there too. So I got their 2 blue plumbagos and planted them in that pot, and hoping they will live through the winter as well. So this is my side. This is another sweet olive tree. Okay, now I'm going to go to the back. I started to tell you that this was a brick patio, and it had lots of holes in the brick because the brick was so old, and it was a hazard to walk across. So Steve decided, instead of pulling up all the bricks that were broken and too old, he would just put a deck over it. And he did that last spring, and it's not my favorite. I prefer the brick, but you know, at some point we may tear up this deck and put the bricks underneath it, and we can just repair the brick. He actually repaired these bricks right here, and he did a pretty good job. It took him a little bit, and I kind of wish he had done that on that deck, but he wanted to try the deck, so we've got it, and we'll keep it that way for a while anyway. All right, so now I'm heading back towards the back of our garden. Here's a little concrete garden stool I got at a garden outing with our garden group years ago. This is another dinner plate hibiscus, and this one I think is called ballet slippers. And like I said, I've had those for several years, and they die back in the winter, and then they come back. Here is some more. This was I planted this pot of cuttings from the Purple Heart, the Wandering Purple Heart. These are just some ferns that I have planted there. This is my compost. I bought this Smith & Hawken compost bin on Facebook Marketplace and back in the spring. And you put your cuttings, you put vegetables in it, you put, spent flowers in it. And I also go to my friend Claire Cornett to her horse barn, and I get horse manure and put in that, and then you toss it, and it will make a wonderful soil for your flowers and for your garden. So here is a bench this is a storage bench we bought for all the outdoor cushions that we have, that we try to bring them in if there's a storm or during the winter, and we thought, well, let's store them in this bench, but y'all, we never use this thing, so we'll probably pull this out at some point, and I'll have a little bit more planting space because we never put our cushions in there. We just bring them, put them in the garage if it's storming. Here's an old bike I bought at the Salvation Army. I just wanted a bike in my garden.